Hi, everyone. Welcome to Meet the Mailers. I'm Paul Bobnak for Who's Mailing What, and today I'm talking with Ilan Mann. He is the co-founder and CEO of Postalgia. Now, before we get started, if you have any questions or feedback, please comment in the box below. You can show support by tapping the like button, and to get notified of when we add new videos to our channel, click on subscribe. Now let's meet the mailers. Ilan, thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
Well, let's get started by talking about your background. How did you get involved with all of this, with direct mail, and what does your daily role involve at Postalgia?
Yeah, so basically, first job straight out of college, I worked on political campaigns and tons of direct mail around political campaigns. So I really got to cut my teeth learning about how mail works. And honestly, it's something that I never really thought about coming of age when I did. Mail wasn't a huge part of my life, and I would say for the older generation, they were much more accustomed to being persuaded and being communicated with through mail. So that was an incredible experience for me, and I kind of got to learn about this whole world and this whole offline medium and marketing strategy that I knew nothing about. And from there, I guess I just kind of got hooked. And
Mhm.
when we founded Postalgia, it was based heavily on experiences I had working on political campaigns. As an intern, hand addressing envelopes myself to
Ah, yes.
increase the open and conversion rate. Yeah, I think anyone who's ever worked on a campaign is probably familiar with that. Hand addressing them and then licking them, of course, rather
Right.
than using a sealer. And yeah, I mean, my day-to-day role at Postalgia, so I'm the co-founder and CEO. And as the business has grown, that role has changed a lot. It used to be stuffing envelopes by hand back in the day, and I literally saw every piece of mail that ever left our facility back when we were a young company. Uh,
Wow.
and now I think my role is a lot more like creating systems, making sure that processes and systems are in place to run our operation as efficiently as possible, talking to customers and learning about best practices, and watching your podcast amongst others to learn what's going on in the direct mail world.
Great. Yeah, I was just going back to what you said about all of the intense amounts of hours required for a lot of campaigns. A lot of it is just people power, sitting down at long tables, because I've done some of this myself back in the day, sitting down at long tables with, maybe a bottle of soda or something like that, or a cup of coffee there, and spending hours with mail, getting a mail campaign out the door because you had deadlines to get it out.
Yeah, one of the amazing things about political campaigns is that they're kind of a pop-up operation.
Hmm.
Um, they sort of are created and gone in 90 or 100 days sometimes.
Yep.
So they're not investing in things like a stamper or a folder stuffer machine or a complicated phone system. Usually, they're often replacing those technological efficiencies with just raw volunteer human power. So that's really the lifeblood that a campaign works on.
Right, right. Well, that brings me to my next question, which is just getting to it. Can you talk about the solution that your company offers to marketers and nonprofit fundraisers?
Yeah, absolutely. So we use robots that hold a pen and drag it across the paper, just like the human hand would, to create the most realistic looking handwritten pieces of mail in the market. And so essentially what that's doing is it's doing exactly what I did as an intern on those political campaigns.
Right.
It's hand addressing envelopes, it's handwriting little notes and handwriting thank you cards and holiday cards and fundraising letters and things of that nature to make communications as personal as possible, using obviously extremely variable data where we can, and trying to really scale that human touch. So the kind of thing that would have normally been reserved for one person, maybe a incredibly important customer or a major gift donor,
Hmm.
or an important endorser of a political campaign, and we're trying to scale that and democratize it so that you can treat all of your donors or customers or voters as if they're the most important person in the room.
Hmm. And basically, the types of pieces that you do this for in a campaign, they can be like outer envelopes and note cards and things like that, right?
Yeah, everything but the kitchen sink. We do note cards, tent cards, executive letters, your standard 8.5 by 11, outer envelopes, reply devices, reply envelopes, you name it, really. We've done it, newsletters,
Hmm.
sticky notes. We handwrite on just about everything we can.
Right. And I'm thinking too, like a lot of, especially if you have robust data on your donors that you can, send anniversary cards of when they became a member or
Exactly.
birthday cards, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you nailed it. The more timely and the more variable and personalized the outreach can be, the larger punch it packs.
Hmm. So, direct mail and marketing can take a lot of different forms, as we've both seen, in this industry. But what is it about handwriting that works so well? What kind of tactile or visual factors are at work with using handwriting?
Yeah, when I was in school, one of my favorite subjects was learning about cognitive biases
Hmm.
and the sort of heuristics that we're all susceptible to. Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, they've got that famous book, Thinking Fast and Slow, where they talk about sort of the mistakes that we all make, that every human is susceptible to. And one of the things they talk about that I loved is the effort heuristic,
Hmm.
which is that we assign more value to something that we think took more effort to create.
Right.
And I think that's exactly what's happening here with handwritten notes. The idea that somebody sat down and took the time to write something for you, they got the hand cramps and everything, they got the ink stains, that just sort of gives the recipient a pause before they sort of throw it out and move on to the next piece of mail. In fact, the opposite happens. Typically, when you've got a pile of mail, got your pizza flyers and you've got your hydro bills and things along those lines, you see a handwritten letter popping out, maybe in an off-size, off-color envelope, that sort of thing. And that's the first thing you want to open.
Right.
And so I think that has a lot to do with the effort heuristic and the idea that somebody took the time and sat down and personalized this. And everybody at the end of the day wants to feel special and heard and seen. And I think that
Hmm.
that's what this technology is really doing.
Right. Just like having a personal letter from a relative or a friend, like, years ago.
Exactly. Yeah. And this sort of idea that I'm important enough for somebody to take the time, right? Obviously, our goal is to scale this technology,
Right.
but there is sort of the idea that it's an unscalable thing, right? I would have to
Hmm.
be pretty important for somebody to sit down and write me a letter because they can't be doing that all day for hundreds of thousands of people.
Right. So let's talk about how this technology in mail can work for different verticals. Like what business categories do you primarily work for?
Great question. And we have kind of a diverse set of verticals that we address, but I would
Mhm.
say probably the biggest and fastest growing would be nonprofit.
Okay.
And that's also, I think, one of the verticals we add the most value in. So fundraising and, of course, stewardship, which is a growing phenomenon in the nonprofit world and in nonprofit fundraising. And you kind of, you hit the nail right on the head earlier when you said sending out donor anniversary cards or birthday cards or these highly personalized holiday cards or thank you cards. That's a great way to show donors that you care and that that you're grateful, and there's an organizational culture of gratitude
Hmm.
around their gift, and that sort of communicates to them that their gift is being spent wisely in a way. That's sort of the inference that comes with that culture of gratitude. So stewardship has just been exploding over the last over the last few years, and we've been pretty lucky to be a part of that growth. Um, and so we do a ton of that, and then we've seen incredible results on the fundraising, which we also do. But those two hand in hand have been really a great one-two punch.
Hmm. Do you work with small businesses? Is there a need for that too?
Yeah, absolutely. So we work with all kinds of small businesses. We work with independent professionals. We work with dental practices or physiotherapists or small medical practices, that sort of thing. And then, of course, we work with also larger financial institutions. So we run the whole gambit, I would
Hmm.
say, in terms of sizes of business.
Yep. So, let's circle back to one of the markets you mentioned, which is nonprofits and
Mhm.
fundraising. Can you talk about like some, good like best practices? You mentioned especially making connections and stewardship?
Yeah, so one of the most impactful things that we've seen, obviously we do a lot of testing on our end. One of the most impactful things that we've seen is we've really A/B tested um, sending out stewardship pieces and not sending out stewardship pieces, and sending out higher impact, more personalized stewardship pieces and not. And we've seen massive increase in the follow-on fundraising that comes when people receive something as simple as, I mean, I'll give you an example. We did for a large foundation out of Massachusetts, we did a Thanksgiving card to half their list. No ask, no reply device, no pledge card, just Happy Thanksgiving
Right.
from a relationship manager that they may or may not know. Including one or two details that we had if we had them, and we sent that to half the list, and we didn't send to the other half of the list. And then a month later, the whole list received their end of year fundraising appeal.
Mm-hmm.
And they raised more than $130,000 more from the half of the list that received Thanksgiving card. They
Wow.
were more likely to give. Yeah, it was a huge impact. They were more likely to give. They gave in much higher quantities, and this was just sort of a random A/B test. So we use that example all the time to illustrate the importance of stewardship. And then also in fundraising, it's important to just ask the person as an individual rather than ask them as a name on your list or a number in a database. And so that means including a personalized PS, maybe referencing their past generosity,
Mm-hmm.
having it signed by somebody at the organization who's had an interaction with them. That's another thing that we use, I think, to a great effect is variable handwritings and variable signatures. So
Right.
even if we're sending to 10,000 recipients, one person can be pulled out based on a variable in the database and given a message, or written a message in a different handwriting with a different signature that corresponds to somebody with whom they have a personal relationship with the organization. And that's incredibly powerful because at the end of the day, I mean, I think, you know this, I know this, people buy from people, people give to people.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what we're trying to do here.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, I tell people that all the time. It's whatever kind of marketing you're using direct mail for, or direct mail in conjunction with other channels, is even B2B. You're not marketing to businesses, you're marketing to people. People are businesses.
Right.
Right. Um, so are there other verticals that really work well? I'm thinking like possibly of real estate would be a good one.
For sure, definitely. And the unique thing about real estate is that we work with massive brokerages and we work with independent realtors who are just trying to build their brand and get their name out in the community. And this technology is a great way to do that. I mean, if you want to talk about people buying from people, there's very few businesses that people do that more than in real estate, right?
Right.
Your home is probably the single biggest purchase you're ever going to make. You
Right.
really need a culture of trust with the person that you're going to empower to make that purchase on your behalf. And so a handwritten letter is a great way to build that relationship and build that trust. And of course, to just stand out and get the attention in such a competitive market. So we've been pretty lucky to see a ton of business come in through real estate buyers, sellers, investors, really the whole gamut.
Right. And also, I'm thinking too about, the uh, making that connection again with people. First thing they see is that direct mail piece, but if it has that personal touch, and then you're interested in selling your house or buying a house, that's your intro, and then you meet them in person, and that reinforces that connection.
Yeah, I mean, we've had situations where like my aunt and uncle have gotten letters that we've written
Mm.
from realtors, not knowing that they're from us, of course. And I was over at their place for dinner, and I saw it on their kitchen table. And they'd gotten the letter a few weeks earlier with no interest in selling their house necessarily, but that letter, it's something that's more difficult to throw out
Right.
than just a sheet flyer. So it sticks around when it comes from a nonprofit or a politician. Often it finds its place onto the fridge, with a magnet or something like that. Or
Right.
if it's a holiday card or a birthday card, it finds its way onto the mantle, and it has more staying and retention power than some other pieces of mail.
And builds a brand if it's
Absolutely.
for that too. So like political campaigns, elections are always coming up one place or another. I also see this as being powerful for that too.
Definitely. That's how we kind of got our start. As I mentioned, my background is in political campaigning,
Hmm.
and a lot of our earliest clients were political campaigns. And super powerful technology for getting out the vote. So because of its ability, as we talked about, to stand out and kind of jar people out of complacency and apathy, really good at getting people to vote who otherwise might not have voted. Really good at getting people to remember where their polling station is. If you send them a
Hmm.
postcard with their polling station handwritten on it, and just again that effort heuristic breaking through the noise in a political campaign. And then, I mean, going back to trust, right? Like we're talking about a political candidate that you're entrusting with power in a very real sense.
Right.
These are individuals putting their name on a ballot and asking you for their support. There's few better ways to do that, short of, I would say, knocking on your door or a personal phone call from the candidate. There's few better ways to do that than a handwritten letter from the candidate. So we've done some really powerful persuasion pieces using handwritten mail. Again, really great get out the vote pieces. And then, of course, political campaigns, like anything else, run on donor dollars. So all of the fundraising and stewardship stuff that we talked about earlier applies just as much to political campaigns as it does to nonprofit organizations.
Well, how can companies and nonprofits use handwriting uh, on a piece to engage customers at like different points along the customer journey? You know, where they are, meeting them where they are. Would you maybe use different formats at that point?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things we do is we have a lot more inserts that we put into the envelope the higher up in the funnel it is. So uh, one of the key things about a handwritten message is that you want to keep it short.
Yeah,
It sort of crosses that uncanny valley when it's too long,
right,
and
right.
people start to think it doesn't look so real.
Yeah.
And so it packs a huge punch, but you want to keep it short. And in order to have that impact, you can't necessarily always cram as much information as you might want to um, with someone who's higher up in the funnel and less familiar with your offering. So that's where we start adding in newsletters or impact reports or informational flyers, things of that nature, and then a little handwritten note on them or onto a note that's paper clipped or stickied onto them, or inserted into the envelope with a newsletter, that kind of thing. And then as you get farther down the funnel, you're talking about either warmer prospects that you're more familiar with or people who are already your customers. That's when you start to be able to really leverage variable data because you have more information on them,
Hmm.
and you're able to sort of build on past interactions with them, assuming you keep your CRM clean, which is sort of the first order of any direct mail campaign, I think, because you're only as
Absolutely.
good as your data. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, talking like just in general about direct mail, why does it work so well today? What's like the real value proposition in it for marketers and nonprofits to continue using it?
Yeah, I mean, great question. I used to have this cartoon that I would point to, and I'm just gonna butcher it in the description, but I'll do my best. Trying to verbally describe a visual medium, but it basically showed somebody 20 years ago with a big pile of mail, being super excited about their computer digging and saying, "You've got mail."
Right.
And it says, 20 years later, and that same person has 950 unread emails in their inbox and
Yeah.
they're super excited about that letter that they got.
Right.
Um, and so I think just, the proliferation of digital media has made direct mail a very distinct choice. It
Mhm.
costs money, where sending an email doesn't necessarily cost as much money. And so people are sending fewer and fewer pieces every year. And those pieces need to be higher and higher impact. And I think that's kind of what makes direct mail magical now is that, first of all, anything that could transcend into the offline, tactile, analog world is automatically magical in my books,
Yeah.
because everything's so digital today. It feels often disconnected from reality, and breaking past that noise with something physical is just a treat. But then also because fewer and fewer pieces are getting sent, the pieces that are getting sent are a novelty, and they're breaking through that noise in a very real way. And then handwriting is just a further way to stand out,
Hmm.
and to make those personal connections. So if that answers your question, yeah, I think that's one of the reasons, if not the
Yeah.
big reason, why direct mail is so powerful today.
Yeah. No, I think you're completely on point. So what trends do you see unfolding in direct mail, you know, for the rest of the year and from your point of view going forward, into the future?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, as I mentioned, one of the big trends is just that people and organizations, postage prices are going up, and cost of all materials are going up. Supply chain took quite the roller coaster journey
Yeah,
throughout the pandemic, and so I think people are being very intentional about what they send, and you need to see the kind of conversion rates that justify direct mail as a channel. And so I think that that's kind of that's driving the big trends that I'm seeing. People are seeking more expert advice when they're putting together the direct mail campaigns. I think that marketers who would be comfortable sending an email or an email campaign on their own or creating a digital campaign on their own in-house are looking for expert help to create a really powerful direct mail campaign. And this all has to do with just, costs are going up, and I think the impact's going up too.
hmm Well, I think that's a really great place to wrap things up for our chat. How can people find out more about Postalgia for consultation, uh, possible partnerships?
Yeah, definitely the best place to start would be our website. So that's www.postalgia.ink, and that's Postalgia, Postalgia. And yeah, through that website, would be thrilled if you'd book a meeting with us, request a sample package. We'd be happy to get one into your hands,
Oh, cool.
and we can go from there.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much, Ilan, for joining us today. Really appreciate you being here. And thank all of you out there for joining us today on Meet the Mailers as well. And again, if you have any questions for us or for my guests today, please leave in the box below. You can show your support for the program by tapping the like button and click on subscribe to be notified of when we add new videos to the Who's Mailing What channel. If you want to be highlighted in a future Meet the Mailers yourself, I want to hear from you. So my contact info can be found in the paragraph below by tapping Show More. Thanks again for watching Meet the Mailers, and see you here next time.